Daryl Albertson. I'm a Senior Conservation Officer with the Department of Environment, whatever it's called today, Planning and Industry and Environment. I first came to the Guida in '98 to do the first round of the water sharing plans. But more recently, 2007, I suppose we became the environmental water managers for the Guida, and now we work with the Commonwealth with a fairly large portfolio. 25% of the dam is water for the environment. So one of the problems, and we work with the Environmental Water Advisory Group, the old ECA committee, to actually to deliver flows or to plan our flows for the year. One of the problems with trying to manage water for the environment and in a fairly complex, unknown sort of environment where there's a number of things that are unknown, some of the things are known, it's quite difficult to get a handle on what we need to do at any one point in time. So you apply your best knowledge at the time, talking to all your colleagues, fisheries, national parks, landowners, irrigators, the whole lot, to try and work out what to do. But what we developed back in the day, well, this is the first principle that I'll start with, was supporting waterbird breeding. Now, it's not fish, but it might give you an idea of how we actually manage the water out of the dam to provide water for waterbird breeding. So this is an animation, and so there's some audio to it.
A large natural flood event is often a cue, providing perfect conditions for colonial waterbird breeding. Waterbirds migrate to the flooded wetland breeding site to build nests, lay their eggs, and raise their young. The tail end of these important natural flooding events into the wetland is often prematurely cut short due to the redirection of floodwater for upstream users. When the tail end of a natural flood event is cut short, waterbirds are likely to abandon their nests and eggs and have an unsuccessful breeding season. Alternatively, if water for the environment is released to ensure that the tail end of the flood is extended, then waterbirds are able to rear their young to fledgling stage and complete a successful breeding season.
So that just shows you how we might use water, how we do use water out of the dam. The big problem is, and as it explained, is that the flood comes through, the birds come, the flood is cut short. What we do is try and keep around 350 to 450 megalitres a day going into the wetlands to keep the birds on their nests, because a lot of the birds are sensitive to rapid drops in water levels. So, and that's a predatory thing. So if they're nesting on lignum or in the River Coober or on the rushes in the wetlands, as soon as the water drops away, they just abandon, they leave their eggs. So we've done this successfully. We've probably had two big floods, 11 and 12, and just the recent one, where the birds came en masse to breed in the Guida. Again, one of the jewels in the north for waterbirds. But that's the principle of supporting waterbird breeding in the Guida by the use of water for the environment. So I'll go to the next one.
During normal seasons and with good rainfall, this healthy river has a natural and variable flow of water. Along the length of a river, there are deeper pools that form refuge habitat for native fish during extended dry times. Natural river flows keep these pools in good condition and support our native fish populations. However, an upstream dam can reduce the natural flow, particularly during extended dry periods, in turn drying the refuge pools. This can be devastating for many fish species that rely on these pools as refuge habitat. Water for the environment can be released during these extended dry periods to help reconnect the length of the river, recharge these refuge pools, and protect downstream fish populations.
Now this is one that we've put in place probably about after 2009. 2009 was a bit of a, and I'll expose warts and all here tonight. 2009 was actually quite a bad time for the fish, so we had a very dry period. The river operator at the time to restart the river, because we're in a regulated system and we're under the influence of booms and busts of our climate in a semi-arid sort of environment. They let 450 megalitres out of Moree into the Moree. It killed everything down to Gundear Weir. What that told us, and there wasn't a lot of science around at the time, but what it told us was by flushing the river with a high rate, it basically took all the organic matter into the river, all the leaf drop that was around the river, took it into the river and deoxygenated the river, and all the fish were killed. So what we did then was develop this principle called protecting pools during dry times, post that 2009. And we've used it successfully since a number of times to restart the river, to keep the fish in these refuge pools. So we're not targeting the smaller riffles, the smaller little pools that make up the connection between the deep pools. We're looking at the deeper pools that last longer. And we've got some principles or some numbers around, how long without a flow, 30 days, 40 days, 60 days, all that, that applies to this principle. One of the problems that we had in 2019, even though I said we'd restarted it successfully a number of times, even right down to the Barwon Darling in our northern fish flow, one of the problems we had in the Moree in 2019 was the amount of leaf drop that was in the Moree. So we restarted the Corral and the Guida and the Moree at exactly the same time, but the Moree had a real problem with black water. And we ended up killing 200 to 300 fish along that stretch, and they ended up in Cambardalo Weir. What we found was the leaf drop was so excessive that was, quite out of the ordinary. But what we actually got out of it from our southern neighbours was a method to be able to assess and calculate the volume of leaf litter that was available if we sent a flow prior to the flow. So we could then know what the risk was. One of the things we did as a mitigating measure in 2019, as the water went down, we were able to work with the local irrigator above Cambardalo Weir to pull the first 10 megs out of the river via pump. So as the black water moved through the river, he was able to grab the first 10 megs and dump it onto some farming land, which actually then alleviated some of the deoxygenated water as it went into Cambardalo Weir. Then as we actually released from Cambardalo Weir downstream to Gundear Weir, we released it in such a way that it was a low flow, small flow. When it got to Gundear Weir, we closed Gundear Weir and diverted into the Mallowa. So then we were able to put that first flush of black water into the Mallowa, and we killed nothing in the Gundear Weir. So just to highlight the warts and all of it, it's not an exact science. We've really tried hard to manage these things. And the last one, before I'm cut off by Craig, is what we do out of the dam.
When this healthy, naturally flowing river is dammed, there is an impact on downstream natural flows. Modelling suggests that the greatest impact of damming is in the river stretch immediately downstream from the dam. The biggest negative impact here is on fish populations, such as queues from spawning. If there has been good rainfall and inflows into the dam in late winter or early spring, then water for the environment may be released between July and September to help support those fish populations immediately downstream of the dam. This spring stimulus flow of water for the environment happens only if there is enough water for the environment accounts and when the upstream dam inflows triggers are met.
So this one we actually have done a number of times. We use up to 15,000 megalitres. It's triggered by either inflows into the dam from 1,000 to 15,000 megalitres. It's really to benefit the fish downstream of the dam to the Horton Dam inflow, acknowledging that we haven't fixed cold water pollution and that's still an impact, but then giving these flows at the start of the season starts that carbon cycling, starts all the food supply, things that fish need. And what we do also is follow late. If we've done this flow early in the season, what we do is a stable fish flow during the period of no irrigation, usually around in November, between the first and the second watering. We send a stable fish flow so if we've bred any of the fish, we are providing them with a stable environment to prosper. So I suppose in final, it's not an exact science. We've developed 9 principles over my time since 2007 for a range of purposes, and we've got many successes under our belts, and we've learnt a lot. Also, we've probably learnt by our mistakes as well, which is one of the benefits of trial by doing or learning by doing, I suppose. That's it. Thank you.